All right, hello guys. I did give you a little bit of a two-time speed music at the very end. We're back on Streamlabs, so we're not in the streaming software I've been using since basically the start of the year. So hopefully we don't run into any problems during the stream. This stream, for the most part, is going to be housekeeping. I want to talk about some things with the channel overall, what to expect moving forward throughout basically until House of the Dragon Season 3 is done. Gonna answer some questions that you guys asked or topics as I was kind of just doing some preparing for the rest of this first half of the year and trying to get some videos planned out. So we'll do a little bit of answering those as well. There's some very good ones tied into some of the things we're going to talk about in this stream. So we're going to talk about the Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 2, at least with the castings, will be a very small segment of the stream. More importantly, I want to talk about the Aegon the Conquest show slash movie rumors, which has been very interesting to look at. We've been under the assumption that we're going to get either a show or a movie, not both. It looks like we might get both, which is very interesting. And I'm not sure yet if it's going to be one's going to be on the Conquest, the other one's going to be the Dornish Conquest afterwards. What we're really getting from both of these two, both the writers and the people that seem to be in charge of them, it does seem like we're in good hands. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And yeah, so just a general like catch up stream. I also want to talk about the rereads channel a little bit at some part of this stream as we're getting close to the end of Clash of Kings, what to expect on that channel as well. So yeah, all that to say, hi guys, we're back doing a little bit of a stream. Haven't really done one of these in a couple weeks at this point. I wanted to do one last week, but ended up doing some other stuff with a friend. I also am starting to get sick. I can already feel it in my throat and my ear because of the temperature change, so bear with me in not this week's videos, but next week's videos, and maybe during the stream if I eventually start coughing or something like that. So, firstly, I want to look at kind of the plans for the future. So, we're now done with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and we've had a very weird experience with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The first half of the show, the first like month of the show and the lead up to it, channel did very badly. The channel did very poorly in January, and I would say like through midway through February was like the worst viewership the channel's had in years. And then, really weird, again, I think it was more the general audience started to like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms a lot more as we got to episode 4, 5, and 6. And then the finish to the show had a very good bounce back month. I've had 3 videos that are in like my top 15, so really weird with that. And now we're kind of in the, okay, build up into House of the Dragon Season 3 season. And so what is that going to look like with the content? I talked about this in January. That content was probably going to be different this year, depending on what cycle we were in. So during a Night of the Seven Kingdoms season, a lot more content. It'll be teetering on 2 to 3 videos a week plus 2 live streams every single week. For House of the Dragon, I don't know if it's going to be the same because House of the Dragon, I don't have the same investment or love as I did for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. But if there's a lot I want to talk about with House of the Dragon, whether that be positively or negatively, I probably will still do 2 live streams. We'll definitely be doing the one after the episode drops, and then maybe the one on Monday. We'll see on that. And then the plan would be 2 to 3 videos a week during maybe House of the Dragon time. Now, between that and after House of the Dragon finishes, the plan is to go down to 2 videos on this channel, which has kind of been the trajectory that this channel's been on for the last few months. You might be asking, why? You know, this channel used to have 4 uploads a week, and then one of those uploads got moved to a rereads channel. If you don't know about that channel, I reread every single week a different chapter, and right now we're about to finish A Clash of Kings. So if you want to check that out, it is just called The Grease Goblins Rereads, and the first 2 books will be done within the next like week or 2. So there's that. Then I kind of was at 3 videos a week. And I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like this channel has been a thing for around like 4 to 5 years at this point. And it's kind of hard to do videos that you haven't already done. And so at this point, I think going down to 2 videos makes, one, those videos better in terms of they're just higher quality. And then 2, it just keeps it a little bit more fresh for me. and hopefully fresh for you guys, because we're just getting to the point where 3 uploads just doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of the main channel. You'll still get the reread stuff on the second channel. And then I'm kind of like dividing that content in terms of Wednesday, like upload is going to be more, okay, this is on the book stuff. So this could be like a lore video, whether that's on a character or it's on a castle or it's some sort of book theory that only extends to the book. That's where like Wednesday's video will be. It'll be more for the hardcore audience that want to hear about the book stuff. Friday will be a bit different. It'll be kind of a mix of show and book stuff at times. So this could be like a show analysis thing. So maybe Game of Thrones did something that I didn't like, or they did something that was interesting. So that could be something like my Renly book to show thing, where I talked about how they didn't do Renly all that well, or how I just did a video on Roose Bolton, which was like an analysis of his storyline in both the book and the show. It'll be more stuff like that, where it'll be focused in on both the show and the book, not just on the book itself. And I want a preference for that upload when we start getting closer to House of the Dragon, so probably around May. Those will start being a lot more House of the Dragon, what happens in the show with this character versus in the book, and kind of comparing and contrasting what worked in the television show, what didn't work. So a character I have not gotten around to even after House of the Dragon Season 2 is Aemond. I want to do a video on him, book versus the show. So that'll be a lot of those uploads. I will be like that in May and June as we go into House of the Dragon. So that is the plans for content. I do have a list of videos that I'm going to pull from, but as of right now, still very much open to interpretation on what the uploads are going to be. This week, you guys are going to get 2 semi-connected Night of the Seven Kingdoms stuff. We're going to do the life of Aemon Targaryen, which will be up, I believe, on Wednesday. And then also on Friday, we'll have a video for who would have been a better hand during the reign of King Aerys I. Bloodraven or Maekar. In the book, it ends up being Bloodraven, comparing, contrasting maybe their weaknesses, strengths, and who would have done a better job. So that'll be those uploads. This week's kind of a weird one where it is more just book focused, not so much a book versus show on Friday, but that'll more start next week. Hi, Capricorn, how are you? 2026 does have a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire content at least. So, Mats, this is something important to, I think, talk about right away is we're not really going to see a year like we saw last year, where last year there was nothing. There was no Night of the Seven Kingdoms news, really. That didn't kickstart until, like, maybe November, December. House of the Dragon was not a thing in 2025. We're getting Game of Thrones content basically every single year for the foreseeable future. We'll have a Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 2 next year. House of the Dragon's final season will follow that. And also we might get Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 3 that year as well. That'll be in 2028. 2029, who knows? We might start getting some of these Aegon, the Conquest projects at that point. If not, if they keep up with the yearly releases for Night of the Seven Kingdoms, we'll have the next season of that. So, like, what you're kind of gaining from it is we're going to have a Night of the Seven Kingdoms or a House of the Dragon or some other HBO show likely every single year. We also have a play for Robert's Rebellion that's coming out this year, which will probably be something that I'll have to cover at some point this year. So, again, there's just a lot more news coming, and there's a lot more stuff than there was this past year, which is kind of like the A Song of Ice and Fire Year of Death. I think most channels saw a decline in viewership. Now, that is not to say every channel, but a lot of channels, especially the big ones, you could see a dip in viewership. We'll see how that goes getting back into House of the Dragon, which is, for my channel, always been the big boom months for me. Now we just need the Winds of Winter releasing. No comment on that. Well, I guess we are going to talk about that later on in the stream, as I've been seeing a lot of social media discourse on George R. R. Martin and the Winds of Winter, so I thought I'd bring that up. Yeah, Matt's House of the Dragon, I don't even ask questions anymore. Like, I didn't even know that there was a casting for 10-year-old Jaehaera, so that just kind of tells you how informed I am with House of the Dragon at the moment. I'll hate it if they make the Conqueror some six-pack perfect boy. Note to Henry Cavill, thanks in advance. Well, the funny part about that is, Capricorn, is Aegon is like kind of the way we talk about the characters. He's this very stoic, alpha personality, I guess. I hate that terminology, but that's the way he's kind of described in A Song of Ice and Fire, or Fire and Blood, I should say. So, like, almost that would fit it in Capricorn. If they do that, what I hope that they do with the Aegon the Conquest show, and we're going to talk about this a lot more in the stream, is they take these characters that we don't have a ton about them. Like, we don't know a lot about Aegon's personality. Like, we have, comments here and there that were given that he says, but we don't know a lot about him as a person behind closed doors. So I'd hope they would expand that part of him as a character. Like, Visenya is a character that I feel like is pretty well developed in Fire and Blood. You just need to kind of take the way George has characterized her through Fire and Blood and just, give her more dialogue and just fit into the narrative that he's made for her. But they definitely have a lot of room to wiggle with characters like Rhaenys and Aegon, for instance. Matt says, I don't want an Aegon the Conqueror movie, a Blackfire Rebellion show, or a Robert's Rebellion show. To be honest, the available material is so sparse, and the quality of HBO writers are too bad. Well, here's the problem, Mats. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms kind of reinforced the idea that Game of Thrones projects are just money makers for HBO, so you're going to see them. Whether you like it or not, you're going to see them. Until these projects do not make money, or they do not have the rights to them, they are going to be made. That's just how it is. And if you want to look at the things you just brought up, so Aegon's Conquest, Blackfire Rebellion, or Robert's Rebellion, those are the big three. Those are the big three in terms of, these big, huge wars are happening, or the points that we look to that are like very similar to House of the Dragon, which obviously had that sustained success, even though season 2 was disappointing. I mean, look at season 3. The trailer's doing really well. You can tell people are excited for season 3. My dad, I don't think he was the biggest fan of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. He still asks about House of the Dragon. He's like, when is the Dragon show coming back? And I'm like, it's coming back. So, I mean, I think the problem with that is going to be, if you don't want those things to happen, you're going to have to see these shows not only be poorly written, you need to see the shows not make money. That's the clear part. When the shows don't make money or anything, that's when they won't do those. But you're going to see them, and I'm excited to. I think that they can do some good stuff with those shows. So, yeah, I want to save the Aegon's Conquest discourse, Mats, until we get to that section of the stream that I have ready. I think I'm a little bit more positive on the Aegon Conquest stuff than the general audience is, and maybe it's because I really like that section of Fire and Blood, but we'll talk about that later. Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Season 2 will be the Blackfire show. The amount of needed flashbacks will make sure of that. The problem I have with this, Mats, is we know Season 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has less budget than Season 1 did. So if you're expecting to see stuff like, the red grass field, during the battle, I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know. I really don't know how much we're going to see flashback-wise of the Blackfires, because what we've seen thus far with A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is they really are doubling down on, we're only going to see Dunk and Egg's point of views. Now, there is an exception to that, given the last, post-credit scene, kind of. And then also Arlen. We see him a little bit without Dunk. But I do wonder what they're going to do, because I do think they'll need stuff to fill out the show a little bit. Hi, Zaz. How are you? Yeah, Capricorn, I want to see the Conquest. I know a lot of people don't, but I really do want to see the Conquest. I'm somebody that likes Fire and Blood more than the average A Song of Ice and Fire fan, so anything we get from Fire and Blood, hopefully it's done well, I'm excited for. But yeah, Zaz, let's talk about the Aegon's Conquest stuff here in a second, because there is stuff I want to bring up first. So, a little bit more housekeeping. The worry I have for the rest of, not the rest of this year, the first half of this year. So for some of you guys that have been on this channel or have watched my videos for years now, or if you've gone back to older videos, you'll know I still have them. I have had back issues, spinal issues pretty much since this channel started. Not exactly, like it was probably like maybe a year after the channel started. So I've been dealing with basically 2 herniated bulging discs in my lower back, all the way at the very bottom, that are also degraded. And so when you would go back and watch those videos, I might talk about them more, or talk about it more, because I was having a standing desk, which I still have. I just don't use it that way. But I would record videos standing up, and that was mainly due to back pain, all that kind of stuff. So as the years have progressed, I've tried conservative treatment, and it's not really helped. I just summarize this because I don't want to talk about it for a whole lot of time. But those discs that I have that are bulging, because they're out of my like spine where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to, cushion vibrations, all that kind of stuff, support your spine. Because they're pushing out, they are hitting my nerves. And so anybody that has any knowledge of your back, you have nerves that go from your back all the way down to your feet. And so those are being pinched more or less, to the point where I have like pain all the way down my lower half of my body. And that comes from anything: sitting for more than like an hour, walking, physical activity, anything. So long story short, I'm probably going to be getting fusion spinal surgery to have those discs removed at some point in the first half of the year. So yeah, I will be getting open back surgery, which is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. So that is definitely going to not let me be as, let's just say, active as I would like. And so depending on when I get that, it starts to get a little spooky for when House of the Dragon comes out, because I used to work in my bedroom. So I used to do all my videos in my bed. You can see my messy bed, all that kind of stuff. And I moved it, obviously, because, it just, for one, it just didn't look that good. Well, okay, the messy bed, besides the point. But, like, it didn't look that good. It's like, okay, it's in my bedroom. It didn't look very professional. I moved it downstairs, which I did around House of the Dragon Season 2 when it was coming out. So now the problem is, if I get spinal surgery, obviously, it's not going to be the easiest thing to get downstairs to record/edit. So yeah, and then the recovery time, I'm not exactly sure on, because again, it's not scheduled yet. I've just had an appointment with a surgeon. I've got to basically check some boxes to make sure that we're good for the surgery. But again, it's likely going to be scheduled within the next few months. So if that happens, I am not sure what content's going to look like. Like, I might disappear content-wise for like a month, or however long it takes for me to be able to get down the stairs without help, more or less. So, yeah, we'll see. So the goal is for House of the Dragon Season 3, that at the very least, and if I need help, whatever, to be able to do the streams after the episodes. And then if I can do that, I can take maybe clips from those. Like if we're talking about something that is, relevant, I upload those as videos, and that's just the best I can do. That is the goal as of right now, is to at the very least be well enough to do the live streams, and maybe postpone like very highly edited videos or things that take a very long time to edit. So that is the plan. And yes, I will, like, when I know when I'm going to have surgery, I'm going to, of course, bulk record and edit. So, I'll have content planned, but I don't know how long recovery will take. So that's the other thing that I thought was relevant, because it could creep up around House of the Dragon. But yeah, let me respond to chat real quick. Zaz mentioned, I mentioned in another stream that I was unhappy with the end of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, but he said the post-credit scene was meant to be a joke and we're taking it too seriously. I think people that say that, that's their opinion. And I get it, right? If you really love something, you're willing to just go, oh, okay, that wasn't, it doesn't mean much. The problem, though, is you're telling a joke that, in my opinion, very much ruins a character arc. So, I don't know. It's a whole different thing. I don't want to talk about it too much, but Zaz, I think you are justified in having that opinion of the end credit scene. Hi, Pillower. How are you? Or Phil. You got to tell me one of these days how you want me to pronounce your name. Yeah, Zaz. I mean, here's the way I look at it, Zaz. Okay, with my back. And I've been basically prepared to get surgery. I've wanted to get surgery for over a year now, just because. So I've been dealing with back issues since probably 2023. And it was one of those things where it's like, you know, conservative treatment, it's a lot of hoops they want you to jump through. Health insurance, especially in the United States, and maybe it's just my state, I don't know. I'm not a professional about health insurance. Health insurance is pretty bad. It's just in terms of like, your insurance company does not care if you're, having any type of pain and all this stuff. They will delay you, make you pay for stuff that's not going to work just to do it. So yeah. So for instance, right, I could have had the surgery possibly scheduled already, but they want me to do physical therapy again just to make sure. And it's like, I've been dealing with back issues for how many years? Physical therapy is not going to help. But whole different thing. Just long story short, I've been prepared for a long time now to have surgery. So, but yeah, thank you guys for the kind words. Do you have to fuse them, Goblin? So, in terms of what I know of the surgery, I basically know they're going to remove the discs. They're going to put in titanium and screws, and they're going to try to make it to where like the bones like fuse more or less. That is my general understanding of it. Make a stream while under influence of milk of the poppy. Well, I will be in the hospital for 2 nights if I get the surgery, so maybe we'll get a little stream. That would be interesting. Yeah, Zaz. I personally, again, I share your opinion, so that's all I'll say. Healthcare should be universal, like in most of the EU. I believe so. I mean, I just think it should just be better in general. I mean, like, you pay so much for health insurance in the United States, and they don't really even cover nearly enough. That's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I agree. When's House of the Dragon even coming out? It's coming out in June, I believe. So let's move on from that. So on a positive note, the Rereach channel, we have been doing a Clash of Kings for the last like year and maybe a half. That will be finishing up. Brand's last chapter, and the last chapter of Clash of Kings will be coming out, I believe, next week. So that should be fun. It's a little somber for me. It's my favorite book. But then for the Rereach channel, for you guys that watch over there, I'll have a video out on the POV rankings, another video on ranking all the chapters, and then I'll have a conclusion to kind of wrap up the series. And then a Storm of Swords, I'll take a break. So it'll be a couple of month break, as I don't want to burn myself out. And then I'll probably go back to having maybe clips from the main channel on that channel, just to make the YouTube algorithm happy. And yeah, so that's the update on that. Thank you everybody that has watched that series. It does mean a lot. It's a pretty big accomplishment. We've now made it through 2 books. We got 3 more to go. I would say we've made it through the quote unquote easy books because they're, shorter in terms of the chapters are shorter. Once we start getting to the big boys, it's going to take a lot longer. But yeah, so that's the update for the Rereach channel. So moving on to, a lot of you guys brought up the Aegon's Conquest show or trilogy of movies, whatever they're going to do. So the news that has come out is there's like 2 projects coming out, or 2 projects being worked on. One of them we've known for a while. One of the initial writers on the Batman movie, he's been in development of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in terms of writing it, I believe on a show, I believe. Then we also now have that a writer or someone that was working on Andor is now also involved in Aegon's Conquest material. And this is where it's led to a lot of confusion, because are we having, the trilogy of movies be Aegon's Conquest? So is that actually Aegon taking over Westeros? And then the show is going to follow like the Dornish conquest and then maybe like his reign, like Aegon's reign? It's a bit up in the air right now. It's a bit confusing to me, because also if the original writer who'd been working on the Aegon's Conquest stuff and the script for it, was he always under the illusion that he was going to be doing this certain thing? Has he had to change now? There's a lot of questions that are still up in the air. Just know that we're going to get Aegon's Conquest material at some point in the form of either a movie, a trilogy of movies or a show. Maybe two of those. So yeah, we're going to see that at some point. So let me go back then to Zaz's question. Zaz said, are you worried that they might mess up Aegon's Conquest like the Dance of the Dragons? So Zaz, Aegon's Conquest, it's going to be a lot harder to mess up because it's very straightforward. The only way you can mess it up is like if you mischaracterize characters. So for instance, like Visenya is somebody in the book that is probably the most characterized of the main three, as being somebody that's kind of, I wouldn't even say cruel, but like I don't know, she has aspects of like being kind of cruel, but she's very kind of straightforward with people, not a ton of like jokes. She is somebody that is like very flawed as an individual. Some people really love her, some people really hate her. So Visenya will be interesting to see like how they do. But if they, for instance, make her like a complete villain, or they kind of cut out her negative qualities that are supposed to be there, that are present, that then get passed to Maegor, and then get really exemplified in his whole reign. Like, that's how you start maybe mischaracterizing characters. Or the one thing a lot of people have brought up is that the Aegon's dream stuff and the dagger, I don't mind that in Aegon's Conquest because, well, that's what the Conquest is about. Why did Aegon to just decide to go to Westeros and to take it over? Was it because of greed? Was it because of power, because he could? Was it because of a prophecy or a dream he had in which he believed he needed to be on the throne? Is it a mixture of all of those three things? That to me is where we get to the interesting parts of Aegon's Conquest, especially the premise of it. So I'm not necessarily nervous for it, as much as something like House of the Dragon Season 3, but I do think the problem you have more with Aegon's Conquest is there isn't like how, for instance, House of the Dragon is, or how Game of Thrones is, where there's opposing forces that equally could win. There's high stakes. Aegon's Conquest isn't that. Aegon's Conquest is Aegon and the Targaryens and their dragons just completely destroy Westeros. There's really no fight against them, really. I mean, there is at times, like in the Vale, or in the Stormlands for a little while, I guess, kind of barely. But there's not like a true, like, oh man, are the Targaryens gonna lose type thing. So I wonder how they do that, especially if you're making it a trilogy of movies. Like, it just doesn't feel like you need a trilogy of movies to tell the Conquest. I mean, think about it. For instance, I use a animated movie that tells Aegon's Conquest, then it tells a little bit of some other stuff like Robert's Rebellion, and it's only like 45 to 50 minutes. I use some of the footage for clips for videos. That generally tells Aegon's Conquest in like 30 minutes. Now, let's be fair. It does leave out a good amount of detail. And also, it's not coming from the perspective of like our characters. It's told like a history, like Fire and Blood. So I don't know. It's tough because you don't have a script for it. Like, you don't have what are the characters going to say. Let's fill in the gaps. Let's fill in some details. George leaves a lot of questions, up there. Like, for instance, something as simple as how did the first Dornish like conquest end is a mystery. There's theories on it, but it's a complete mystery. So it'll be very interesting. Also, my cat, her hair, she's kind of shedding now. It's because it's starting to get summer, and it's getting all over the place. JC says, holy shit, what did I miss? Did they confirm Aegon's Conquest? So, on X, more or less, it is confirmed that they're working on two different projects. The
Lannisters send their regards.
Movie or trilogy of movies, and then also a show, more or less. Will HBO cast you as Maegor the Cruel? No, I cannot do Maegor justice. I'm not tall enough or built enough to do that. But hi, JC. We were kind of just doing a little recap of what to expect from the channel, all that kind of stuff. I do agree, Zaz. I think the Conquest makes more sense like a movie. Book Rhaenyra was like Visenya. Also, JC, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. I'll be honest though, Mats, I do think like Aegon's sisters are more interesting than Aegon, so I don't mind that actually. First time participating, cool channel. Quick question. When should Aegon's conquest end? It'd be cool to cover his entire life, childhood, and reign included, not just the conquest. So it depends what you mean by that. Also, welcome to the community. If you're talking a show, and let's just say that the show is going to cover the conquest as well. Like, it's not just like the movie's going to cover the conquest, and then the show that's going to come out after is going to cover everything that kind of follows. If it's just the whole thing, I think you would do the build up to Aegon's conquest, which is only like an episode or two. Aegon's conquest, the first Dornish conquest, and then I think you could do like bits and pieces of how Aegon establishes the kingdoms. You know, you could have Maegor and Aenys be introduced, and then that could foreshadow a future series, more or less. That's how I would do it. Matt's, no, Rhaenyra becomes a lot more like Visenya in terms of her personality in the second half of her life. Once, not even her second half, I mean, once it gets to the point where, like, the Greens are trying to usurp Rhaenyra, like, when she marries, by the time she's married Daemon, she's much more cruel. Like, she is somebody that actively kind of acts like Visenya. I see some fans want Aegon to remain a mystery in the show to where we see how the Westeros kings react to Aegon taking over. Zaz, personally, I wouldn't enjoy that, and that's mainly because I like the Targaryen side of things. I can see why that would work. I think it'd be a massive miss if you're going to do an Aegon's Conquest show and you don't really characterize him or his sisters much. I just think that would be really odd to me. But Jacob, yeah, there's a lot coming on, or a lot coming into the world now. There's, you know, more shows, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we could get a book or two, you know, you never know. Jacob, yeah, I'm glad people are liking United of the Seven Kingdoms, all that kind of stuff. I thought it's more entry, it's newer viewer entry. What are the words I'm trying to say here? It's newer viewer friendly television, I guess. That's how I look at it. Greece, will you be doing streams or vids about the Harry Potter show next year? That'll be on HBO 2. HBO coming to the place of high fantasy. I don't think so. I thought about doing it on a channel that I used to cover television shows and stuff on, but I won't, because that'll just... The problem is, guys, In Deep Geek is a very much an enigma of this. It's very difficult to have a channel that covers multiple types of things, or even like multiple different things. So like, for instance, this channel has been going for 4 or 5 years. It's been exclusively a Song of Ice and Fire outside of like a couple Lord of the Rings videos. Harry Potter would very much confuse the algorithm. It's taking a very big gamble, because if you then start uploading that kind of stuff, I don't know. If I was going to do that, I would just start a whole new channel. JC calling out Rhaenys and Visenya as some hotties. Didn't expect to see that in the stream, but we'll be talking about another hottie here in a second. Mad Dog says, I honestly don't care about all the spin-offs. House and of the Dragon and Night of the Seven Kingdoms is fine. George, go lock yourself in your office for a year. Mad Dog, that is a sentiment a lot of people have had, so we're going to talk about that as well. Should Aegon's conquest start with the Doom of Valyria? No, I don't think so, outside of just like the first episode opens and it's like somebody doing voiceover, and it's the Doom of Valyria, and then the Targaryens fled to Westeros, more or less. That's what it should be. You don't need to like spend an episode or anything there. I basically agree exactly what JC says. Matt's like, Visenya was more of a warrior, and she was probably more intelligent than Rhaenyra at ruling, but they have a lot of similarities and parallels. Hi Ashley, how are you? Well, Jacob, I mean, just think about it like this. Game of Thrones throws a lot of houses at you. It throws a lot of stuff at you. it's a big commitment. You know, you're asking somebody to sit down and watch 8 seasons of television. Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's a short show. It's 6 episodes. You don't really need to know much about this world other than, you know, you have this guy who wants to be a knight, and that's the story. So, yeah. JC says, the YouTube algorithm has taught me that if you do anything even slightly out of your niche, the video will not do well. So this is something I think is interesting for your channel, is you cover a lot of books, or at least that's what you like to be covering when you're not covering A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. It's tough because it varies so much. Like JC, like you go to cover a book, maybe there's not as many people that like that book on YouTube. And so that video does worse. Like that's what I'm experiencing right now with my true crime channel, is like certain cases are going to do well because they're a lot more popular. They do better on YouTube. Other ones, maybe less known. So yeah. It's just how the YouTube algorithm is. It does not usually reward people that switch stuff. My cat has jumped on my desk. I don't think you guys can even see her. Can you hold on. Say hi to the camera, Rhea. Okay, now get down. But yeah, YouTube is not something that you can really do that unless you're somebody like In Deep Geek, which is crazy. I think he started with like Game of Thrones, if I'm not mistaken, and then he kind of transitioned to Lord of the Rings, and his Lord of the Rings stuff does way better than his Song of Ice and Fire stuff. So, yeah. But yes, Zaz, I think doing Aegon's Conquest, the intro, very similar to House of the Dragons. Does George's weight loss give you optimism for Winds of Winter? Not really. I would say that it's nice that he's healthier. That's always great. But I don't think that has a direct correlation to him actually working on the books. Just in terms of like what JC has told me, you know, from him actually seeing him in real life, you know, he's getting older. People age. So I don't know. Yeah, as we've talked about this, I think season 2 is a lot more worrying to me. But we'll see. I hope we get wins, but I have no hope for Dream. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the community is. Yeah, Ashley, you asked for Rhea, and she, like, spawned in. So, yeah, she's going to bring all of her hair and shedding back. I got to brush her today. Ira has said he has plans for 4 seasons while Egg is young and then wait. So how old do you think Dunk and Egg are, and George's plan for She-Wolves and Village Hero and the Dorne story? That's the thing. I can't expect them to be much older, so I'm not sure. Like, I think the Village Hero, they're still going to be around the same age, but I could definitely see for the She-Wolves, he gets aged up a little bit, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, let's continue on here. So we got through the Aegon stuff. So A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, we had some new casting that have come out in the last like couple of weeks for about season 2. The main ones, as these are the main real characters of season 2 outside of the returning cast, we have Rohan Weber by Lucy Boynaton. I didn't say that right, but she's a very attractive woman. I assume she'll do great. I've heard good things about her acting ability, so hopefully they've nailed that. They usually do a very good job with their casting department, I would say. We have Brown Bennis, played by, not going to say this name right, so feel free to give me the correct pronunciation in the comments. Babou Cisse? Didn't say that right. There's been a little bit of controversy as people think like he was race swapped or whatnot. Brown Bennis in the book, like, do we really care? Like, there's no significance of him being race swapped or whatever you want to say. I have no problems with the casting as long as the actor does a fantastic job. So there, I addressed the controversial thing, which I don't know. It shouldn't even be controversial, but whatever. And then the last one is Eustace Osgray, played by Peter Mullen, who looks fantastic for the role. Basically, pretty much how I expected the character to look. So that's been the castings. I don't think there's been any like real big news for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms season 2 outside of that from what we've talked about in the past streams. I also hope George outlives us all, Zaz. Does she like getting brushed? So yeah, she was not a fan the first time because she didn't know what it was. I don't think she'd ever been brushed. But now, like that, she knows what it is. Like she'll let me brush her if she's eating. Like she's completely fine with it, which is weird because cats usually really dislike being bothered when they're eating. She'll let me just sit there and just kind of brush her while she's, she likes getting brushed. I'll just put it there, Ashley. Kise. Well, hopefully I now pronounce that right. I have no idea on his first name, but I've heard good things. I've heard good things about all these actors, so I'm not worried about them, and I'm never worried about the casting for these shows. They usually do a very good job. There's been very few times I've looked at the show and gone, nah, that wasn't good casting. Like it just hasn't happened. House of the Dragon, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has been pretty perfect. The only time I think there's been like a performance or a casting one has been like the Mizaria casting, but I think that the character of Mizaria was a lot better done in season 2. So yeah. The next, I think, news thing that's been circulating on social media is kind of been surrounding George R. R. Martin, and a lot of people calling him out because he hasn't written a lot in the last few years. People calling him a liar, the usual things. And so I did want to take a moment to address the whole George R. R. Martin thing. So let's be frank. George has had 2 main periods of writing the books where he's gotten most of his work done. So the first one is he got a lot of work done right after Dance came out because you had to finish, well, Dance's actual ending. You have stuff like the Battle of Fire, the Battle of Ice, a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be in Dance, ended up not being in Dance. So he had all those fresh ideas. He got a good amount of stuff done for the open to the Winds of Winter. Then the next big moment where we saw him get a lot of progress done was during COVID, when we had people couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't travel. He sat down and wrote a lot. So those are the main 2. Now, sprinkled in between, I would say those 2 specifically, we would have chapter updates every once in a while, and so he did get some work done. And then the last time George really talked about the books, he said he was at, I think it was like 2/3 to 3/4 of the way done with the book, which is where he's been at for years now. Like basically since this channel has been a thing, he's not made any significant progress or told us like he's gotten done with a new chapter or anything like that. So people that suggest that George has not written anything since like COVID, that's completely fair. I don't think he's written much. I think the last few years he's written very little in terms of new material and has probably done a lot more rewriting than he would like to admit. And I will say this on George's account. I don't think George is lying to the people saying he's, writing the book when he isn't, or he's not going to ever release the book when he says he's going to, or this or that. I think George wants to do all these things. And I just think that as of right now, he's not making progress on it. And it's growing less and less likely that he releases the book. You can kind of see that in the way this channel has gone. When I first started making videos about A Song of Ice and Fire, I thought Winds of Winter was coming. I thought it was going to come out at some point. Now we're 4 to 5 years in, and I'm kind of like, I just don't see the book happening in the next few years. But that isn't to say it won't. So that was also the news I kind of wanted to address, because I've just been seeing a lot of people kind of just going after George. And I think that some of it is, understandable. We haven't gotten the books in so many years, and there's not been any progress in the last few years. And we really felt that in 2025. 2025, it felt like a dead year for the community. There just wasn't anything to latch onto. So, yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, Zaz, cats are very weird. Some cats like certain things, like some cats like water. Like I had a cat that would like going into, like, if you had a bath, would be very curious about the water. I had another cat that didn't like that, and I don't know how she is necessarily with water. She isn't overly curious of it, so I'm assuming she doesn't really like it all that much. But yeah, cats are very different in their personalities. Zaz says, I honestly don't care if a character is race swapped as long as the acting is good. See, I disagree with that though. I think that changing the race of a character is fine as long as it doesn't like change any of the meaning of that story. So we could get into some very controversial stuff. Like Snape, for instance, in the HBO series, don't like that because that changes the dynamic. It changes how you view the character of Snape and Harry's relationship in a way that was never intended or shouldn't be viewed as that way either. It has some bad like stereotypes along with it as well. But like for instance, the Velaryon stuff, I have no problems with. One, because the actors are fantastic, and two, because it doesn't really have that much of an impact. Like, yeah, you could say, oh, well, the Velaryons are supposed to look like the Targaryens, all that kind of stuff, and it kind of discounts the idea of people actually questioning Rhaenyra's children actually being Laenors because they all come out not looking like Laenor at all. But I think the show does a good job handling that. It's like people obviously know these aren't Rhaenyra's kids, but they have to kind of go under that because Viserys is saying you either acknowledge them or you get killed. So I think there is some nuance there, but that's just kind of my take on it. Yeah, Euron's casting was not great, but I think that came down to more the writing of the character and the overall idea of the character in the show. Like, I think the actor who plays Euron, he was actively like telling them, I want to go into the Euron character of the book. He, was trying to get them to do it. They didn't do it. So I don't blame the actors much on that one. I think that's more of a D&D problem. My character would take the skin off my hands if I tried to brush her. Yeah, but she's definitely not like that. She doesn't really get too upset unless you like pick her up at times when she doesn't want to be picked up or she wants to play. Like she doesn't ever like actually like try to like bite me to get mad or something like that or whatever. Like she's trying to play with my arm right now, but yeah, whatever. All right, so with that being said, let's move to some questions. So I had some questions that were asked, and this was mainly because I was trying to get some good YouTube video ideas, maybe some things you guys wanted to hear about. And so let's dive into some questions. Zach Jones asks, who was the Laughing Knight, and why was he so feared? So I actually got a little. I don't know what you're exactly asking here because we have like the Laughing Knight character that you could be referring to as being at Harrenhal, which I believe is Lyanna, and given all the stuff there, that makes sense. There's the Smiling Knights. I don't know if like I'm getting this like mixed up here. There's the Smiling Knight, which is in this band of outlaws that Jaime has to deal with. It's kind of one of his big moments, and him becoming a knight, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure which one, what you're referring to. I don't know if chat also can help with this, but yeah. So I would ask to probably clarify your question. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question to ask because I don't have the full context. Because like you could be saying the Knight of the Laughing Tree, but you also could not be asking that. So yeah. Zeno asks, which side would Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys be during the dance? So I think that Visenya would be under the side that she believed had more power and the ability to rule. So I actually think that she would go with Rhaenyra because of Daemon. I think that she would like Daemon more than some of the other Greens. And I also believe that she would understand the Black camp has more of the dragons. They have more of the ways of actually ruling with kind of an iron fist. And I also think she would very much dislike the way that the Old Town, high towers came in and did their maneuvering. So I would say Visenya would be on the black side. I think Aegon would actually be on the green side of things. I think Aegon would understand the idea that a male comes first. Also, I think he wouldn't be as maybe annoyed with the high towers, Old Town, their influence, because that's something Aegon himself struggled to deal with, and it's something he left basically for Aenys to deal with, and that went real well. So I think Aegon would probably be on the side of the Greens. Rhaenys to me is a very much a question mark. I could see her going either way. I could see her going with, okay, let's flip the whole idea that men need to be the rulers. Rhaenyra should become queen because that's what Viserys wanted. Rhaenys is a tough one. I'm going to say Rhaenys leans towards Rhaenyra, but I could see her also going with Aegon. So I don't know. Those are some tough ones, though. Mary asks about Rohan Weber, and then also Blue Jay does as well. Oh, also, I forgot to answer a second part of Zach Jones's question. But you asked about Dunk and Egg dealing with the Ironborn. There's not really a rundown I can give you of that. Because we know the Ironborn during Aerys the First and his reign, they were basically raiding on the western coast. They were basically doing what a lot of people did during Aenys' reign, where they were taking advantage of what they believed or perceived as a weak king. And so we don't actually know much about Dunk and Egg having to deal with that. Like, they definitely could have. Maybe that's when they go up north, they deal with some of the incursions happening on the western side. I guess I should say, I don't know why I said the eastern side, the western side of Westeros, maybe dealing with some of that kind of stuff. But we don't really have any information about that. So I can't necessarily answer that question as well either, outside of just the Ironborn were doing raids at the time, and maybe we could see that involved in a future novella. So going back to Blue Jay and Mary's question about Rohan Weber. So Rohan Weber will be a main character of season 2. There will be spoilers here, so prepare for that. You know, if you don't want spoilers, you might want to leave the stream at this point or stop watching the VOD. But Rohan Weber, she eventually marries into House Lannister, and she actually at one point becomes, well, the Lady of the West. She becomes the person married to the Lord of the West. And so it's interesting because it's said that her and her husband had a very good relationship. They had a lot of kids together. And then all of a sudden, one day, Rohan Weber just disappears. We don't know if she died and it was covered up. We don't know if she fled. We don't know. My best guess, given the way she's characterized in the second novella, is that she disappeared on her own like she wanted to disappear. Because again, we don't have a lot of context into why this marriage happened. I could see a situation where Rohan was not really enjoying the relationship. Like, her husband thought this was a very good relationship. It was very loving, all that kind of stuff. Whereas his wife and Rohan wanted to escape, wanted to leave. And she'd been forced into how many different marriages at this point. She'd been married a ton of times. She had a lot of bad stigma, which you'll find out in the second season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I think that she disappeared. I think she left. I think she went into hiding. More so than she was, like, killed for some reason. Now, there's reasons people might have wanted her dead, I guess, but I think it makes more sense that she kind of disappeared. Like, this wasn't the life that she wanted to live, and so she left. I could see that being a possibility, but it's a very fascinating thing. I might make a video on that. I'd want to save that for season 2 of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but it's a very interesting idea. 2 of you brought it up, so it was a good time to talk about it. Wilhelm asks, the issues the Targaryens had with integrating into Westerosi society after the conquest, and how this helped lead to the rebellion that overthrew them. So, the Targaryens are very interesting because Aegon starts his conquest by trying to integrate into Westerosi culture. He makes a sigil, he has them have house words, he basically lets them keep a lot of their customs. He tries to integrate into their culture. And while that is good, and it definitely helped the Targaryens be more loved by the people, the problem is they also had things that went against Westerosi culture that was just ingrained in them. So, for instance, marrying inside of your own family, having multiple wives, having dragons. They just could never fully integrate into that culture. And that basically is ingrained in the Targaryens for one reason or another. The Targaryens have been raised to believe they are more important. They are bigger men, I guess I would say. They're like demigods over normal people. And so you have a lot of people like Aerion who view himself as higher than the normal person. It's in a lot of ways the disconnect that grows throughout the Targaryen reign. I mean, think about Aenys' reign. If it wasn't for Maegor, and you can say whatever you want to say about Maegor, if it was not for Maegor, the Targaryen dynasty would have literally ended one king after Aegon, because the Targaryens did not respect the religious values of Westeros. The faith had a huge, huge influence over the way the general populace viewed the Targaryens. And that to me is so interesting, because that is a very big part of Aegon's conquest in his reign. That'll be very interesting to see on a show or a movie or something along those lines. JDH just says Maegor Brightflame. So for you guys that don't know, Aerion Brightflame has one child in Maegor. And Maegor is somebody that is prompted up at the Great Council to decide who will become king. More spoilers for Night of the Seven Kingdoms. You've been warned. After Maekar dies. And so, based on, okay, well, Aerion was Maekar's son. Should his son become king? Does not end up happening. You don't name your child Maegor in Westeros. Not a good look. But this has led many people to think about, is there a Brightflame line somewhere? You know, did Maegor Brightflame ever reproduce? And is that Targaryen branch still alive somewhere? Here's my answer. We have no idea. This character is never mentioned again after the Great Council. We have no idea what their life was like. We don't know if Aegon took them to be like a ward or something. No idea what happens to this character. So it's very plausible that George has left that open to, maybe I want to make young Griff a Brightflame, or maybe I want to have this other character be a Brightflame. I just have no idea. But a very intriguing plot point to discuss during that time period. Johnny says Aegon the Fifth equals Varys 1000%. I don't know about that one, but yeah. Efrant asks why Baelor lied in reference to when Dunk is talking about Sir Arlen in the tournament that Arlen and Baelor went up against each other. There's a difference in the amount of lances that was said to have happened. Now, this is where we get to a gray area, because when you look at the dates, Dunk might not have actually been Arlen's squire at this point, but if he was basically just made a squire. So you also got to think about it. Dunk was very young. He might not have known. So I think it's more likely that Baelor was right, that Arlen played it up. So I don't actually think that Baelor was lying, but it is an interesting point to bring up. You also ask, could Sorella and Alaris be twins? One was raised in Dorne and the other in the Summer Isles, which is why he's remarkably skilled with a longbow. To reach that high level requires constant training, and Sorella never trained, or Arianne would have mentioned it. It's possible. I do really just go with the theory that they're the same person, but it's possible. There's just not enough on the character to say, oh, this is who she is, or this is who he is. We don't know at this point. So yeah, it's very plausible, I think. And then the last question you asked is, does anyone know what happened to the Order of the Green Hand YouTube channel? I'm not going to talk on this because I don't know exactly what happened. So I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say something that's not true, that is just rumor that I've heard. So if anybody in the chat or the comments watching this VOD later knows for sure, feel free to let this person know, because I don't really know factually why. I will say this: they were they were one of the first YouTube channels I ever interacted with in terms of once I was a creator. I asked them if I could react to their Ned and Ashara series, which was fun to do. They made great content overall. Even if I disagreed with a lot of their theories, I thought their videos were very well made. So unfortunate. Could Maegor Brightflame be Varys? I don't know if the timing would add up. Like, I don't know how old Varys is and then how old Maegor Brightflame would be. So yeah, that'd be a good question. I actually don't know. That's a good idea to bring up. Ashley says Rhaenys sides with Rhaenyra, and then Aegon stands down because he won't take up swords against her. That's true. That's true. Um, Ashley says, I believe they got divorced. That is what I was told as well. I'm not concretely on that, but that is what I heard as well. So moving on, that was all, I believe, all the questions. Let me make sure on YouTube. No. So Joey says, could it be that the ultimate framework of having a first invading army be the conflict creating antagonist with a second invasion gaining favorable support actually foreshadow the doom of young Griff and the acceptance of Dany's arrival? If Varys x Illyria's original plan was to have Viserys and Dothraki invade first to create conflict for young Griff to be the savior, how should we view the reverse happening? So it's just very different circumstances. So the thing with the Dothraki going in and invading first was because in Westeros there was no conflict happening at that point. So Viserys coming in creates that conflict. It creates a Westeros that's not banded together. So if that young Griff came over second, he would be viewed as the hero because he can solve all the conflict. He's the more legit Targaryen heir. The same thing applies here, but it's different because now the first army that you're referencing in this example is not the army that's creating the conflict. The conflict's already there. You have the Lannister Tyrell alliance falling apart. Dorne is basically in open rebellion at this point, but not really. They're hiding it. The North is in a civil war. The Riverlands have uneasily been put down by the Freys and the Lannisters. The Vale, they're off just kind of in isolation mode, but it seems like they're going to be entering the war at some point. As of right now, Westeros is at its most divided. So the idea of young Griff coming over fulfills that exact same thing. Young Griff comes over as the hero that people can revolve around. He's the one ending the chaos of Cersei's, horrible reign and the Lannisters and all that kind of stuff, uniting Westeros. Daenerys is going to come over and kind of unsettle that calmness, right? So let's say young Griff takes over. He unites the Dornish. He defeats the Lannisters, who are going to be very unpopular by the end of the Winds of Winter. Maybe the Reach is backing him as well, whether that's the Tyrells or the other houses that are still remaining. And let's say the North has kind of figured out its stuff, and it's maybe willing to negotiate with young Griff and all that kind of stuff. Young Griff is going to be viewed as like the hero, the unifying force. Daenerys comes over now with foreign armies, because remember, young Griff is also bringing over not really foreign armies. He's bringing over, exiled lords of Westeros, all that kind of stuff. These are Westerosi he's bringing over mixed with Essos-like people. Daenerys is straight up bringing over dragons, which is a huge threat to Westeros. It again reestablishes that whole idea of every house wanting dragons and, the dance. We go back to that whole time period. 2, you have her bringing over the Dothraki, who Westeros obviously is going to look down upon, view them as savages and warlike people. The Unsullied, obviously, same kind of thing applies to them, but just differently. Daenerys in no way right now is being set up to be the heroic force. It almost kind of feels similar to Aegon's Conquest. Aegon was not viewed as the hero uniting Westeros. He was viewed as somebody trying to take over all these different lands from all these different kingdoms. So yeah, that's why I kind of, it's not going to be maybe the way you're pointing it here of like young Griff might not be the person we're thinking is like the hero or whatever viewed by Westeros. Based on the way things are set up, he's definitely going to fulfill that. What if Griff came during the War of the Five Kings? The same thing would apply. It would just be like, at what point does he come in? And also, it's a very different Westeros. You have Tywin backing the crown. And so it's just very different. It kind of opens up a whole thing of like, when does he come in? Like, is it when Stannis is at the height of his power? Is it when Tywin is with the Tyrells already? Like, it just depends. So, all right, let's go to Instagram now. As some of you guys asked some questions on there, I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so bear with me. I'm going to struggle through the end of this. So, JP asks, what do you truly believe to be Quaith's real identity and motives? And then they say, love your content. Thank you for that. Quaith is a tough one. I know a lot of people think she's Shiera Seastar. I don't believe so. I don't think that we've got enough information to suggest that is the case. I think what her ultimate goal is to, yes, help Daenerys bring about defeating the others and all that kind of stuff. I think it's very generic, but I think it's kind of in line with like Bloodraven's motivations as well, to some extent, right? Do I think Quaith is trying to bring back like the old gods and all that kind of stuff with Bran? Not necessarily, but I think it's the same kind of idea of like defeating the others and all that kind of stuff. Very simplified, but yeah, yeah, that's more or less my thoughts. Ricky, aka Voice of Old Town, asks, what's your cat doing in her free time? Well, she's about 4 years old. That's what the vet has told us. But she's not like playing all the time. She's not like a kitten, but it depends on what's going on. You know, if like my parents are home, she'll be a lot more active. You know, she'll want to play. She'll play basically any time. If you like give her a toy or you're, you know, actively playing with her, she'll play all the time. If not, if it's just me at home and say I'm working downstairs, she'll sleep a lot. So whether that be she'll sleep on my lap, or she'll sleep back here, or she'll go upstairs and sleep. It's kind of a balance between sleeping, eating, and playing. So yeah. Thank you for the question, Ricky. What's the deal with Shade of the Evening? So it's this drink, of course, that gives you these visions and stuff, and we see it. I believe the first time we see it is in the House of the Undying, where they make it from, I believe it's like these plants that they have that are only at the House of the Undying, or maybe it's trees. I can't remember exactly which. But they take that and they make it into this drink that gives you these visions. And we're not sure what exactly goes into it to making it. I honestly believe it might be like some sort of blood magic, like they're sacrificing people to also make it. Because we kind of constantly get this idea that it almost tastes like rotten, like flesh or stuff like that. So I think there's an idea that there's some sort of like blood magic being used, plus the specific undying ingredient that's there, whether I don't remember if it's like a flower or tree or it's something along those lines. I think that's the deal with it. You know, it's using, again, blood magic to get visions and stuff like that, and it has its effect, you know, with the like lip stuff. And I think it to a degree starts to make you kind of go a bit crazy, a little, you know, like that. Look at Euron, again, good example of that. So that is the simplified version of that. That would be a good video to do on. So thank you. Piece of Hole is the username I'm seeing. So thank you for that. Jacob asks, least favorite changes in the show. So you didn't specify which show. So I'll give you all three. So House of the Dragon season, or House of the Dragon in general, my least favorite change was probably either Daemon and the whole Vision stuff, or the Alice and Rhaenyra dynamic that plagued season 2, and just the characterization just in general of where that went in season 2. For A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I would probably say it was the final scene that we saw from season 1, with the likely change that Maekar does not know where Egg is, didn't give him permission to go. We'll see how that ages, but yeah. Game of Thrones is a lot harder because there's a lot of bad changes. There's a lot of things that they did that were wrong. I think my least favorite, though, is probably cutting Young Griff's storyline. I just think it created problems later down the line that D&D didn't know how to solve. Specifically, when Daenerys is coming over to Westeros, just felt like they didn't know what to do with that storyline. So I would probably say that for Game of Thrones. Next question is from Jesus. So thank you. Or Hayes. I don't know. You got to tell me how to pronounce your name in the chat if you see this. But You asked better brother rivalry. Aemon the First, or I don't. Well, it's just Aemon because he never became king. So Aemon the Dragon Knight and Aegon the Fourth, or Daemon and Viserys. So, in terms of rivalry, Aemon and Aegon the Fourth were not really rivals. More as if they were just straight up like hated each other. They were enemies. Like there was no love between the two. So if we're going from that point of view, I think theirs is more impactful because it basically is like the blacks versus the greens for the dance with the Blackfire Rebellion stuff. Like Aegon the Fourth was very much in the Daemon Blackfire camp. Aemon was in the Daeron camp. So I'd say theirs is more impactful. Daemon and Viserys, if you're just looking at it like from a rivalry where there was love between the two and they had a better relationship, then it'd be them. But I'll probably say like Aemon and Aegon because it has probably a bigger impact, I feel like. All right, moving on. Funny question from Maz, because he wanted to be a little jokester, but this is also a serious question, because I also had to think about this for a second. Why don't they just call Brienne of Tarth Brienne Tarth? Because obviously that's her family name. Why don't they just call her Brienne Tarth? Well, as you hear me saying it, you can kind of hear it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. That's why. I genuinely think George was making this character and went, Brienne Tarth just does not sound right. So let's just go Brienne of Tarth or the Maid of Tarth or whatever. I think that's what he was going with. So, yeah. Those are the questions. Thank you for everybody who submitted some questions. I'll probably make maybe a video or two off of some of those ideas. Ones I think I can talk about longer. But yeah, it was a good stream. Got to update you guys on things that are going on, some of the things to expect in the future. And yeah, excited as we kind of go into House of the Dragon Season 3 time. And that's mainly because I would like to talk to you guys about it, not as so much watching the show. But I'm excited for it. Let me know what you guys think about House of the Dragon Season 3, all that kind of stuff. What do you think about Aegon's Conquest show / movies? And I'll see you guys all in the next stream or video. Bye, guys.